Hello and welcome. This is Gail, and we're doing a Zoom virtual tour for the Wasteland Marshals series. Now, the Wasteland Marshals series is a series that Larry and I write together for Falstaff Books, and it is about the last two US Marshals. After the events, capital E, that is a series of cataclysms that pretty much wipes out modern civilization as we know it around the world. Not so much wipes out modern civilization, but it breaks the power grid. All of the governments and the financial systems are down. So it is a near future post-apocalyptic series. And our heroes, Shane and Lucas, are the last two US Marshals who are functioning. A lot of the law enforcement have been decimated from the events, and government is in pretty much has gone back to local control. There's no central government anywhere. And so Shane and Lucas make their three-state rounds, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, and they take care of the stuff that the local authorities can't. So the sheriffs, the park rangers, the local police chiefs that are left, Shane and Lucas come in when they don't know what to do anymore. So we're going to recap some of the sites that are based on real places that, of course, we roughed up a little bit and broke and used in all four of the first four Wasteland Marshals novellas. So let's start with Raven Rock Mountain. Now, if you've watched the Wednesday video playlist, you've seen some video around Raven Rock, which is mostly local people going, yeah, that thing, it's a government installation. They don't let anybody near, nobody can come. So, and the people who do know can't say anything. So it's basically, of course, there's a ton of stuff on the internet. Raven Rock is in the mountains of Pennsylvania. It is a fallback for the government. It's a secret government bunker that's only partially secret. So kind of like what was built under the Greenbrier, this is a fallback for Washington. And so we're not going to get a tour of it by any means, but we do get some, here you can see an entrance into the bunker, get some footage. They get kind of grumpy, I think, with people, even when they get this close with cameras. But if you go out on the internet, you can see a little more detailed schematics like this. And so get an idea, it's out there. It's in the boonies, which is what they are trying to achieve here, to keep people safe in case of a nuclear war. But it is self-sufficient. It's got, there you can see a bit of an entrance. It's supposed to be self-sufficient. It's supposed to be able to house a lot of the government people and keep things functioning. So it's going to have electronics and water and power and all of those things. Of course, in Wasteland Marshals, when they come to Raven Rock, they are coming after the events. It is not in good shape. It has been abandoned and left open. And this is in the first book where the artificial intelligence and the robots have been left by themselves and they become feral. So that's what we can show you of Raven Rock. Now, in the second book, in the third book, I'm sorry, Ghosts of the Past, we go to Anstead, West Virginia. We're going to jump around a little bit here. And Anstead is already kind of remote in West Virginia. If you can, see all that wooded territory. West Virginia is a gorgeous place, a lot of mountains, not a lot of people necessarily, but it is a small town. And in the 1800s, there actually was a spiritualist community that late 1700s, early 1800s, there was a spiritualist community that settled there. Now, it did not last as long as I have it lasting, or we have it lasting in Ghosts of the Past, but it is based on real history. And of course, there's the idea of a haunted large hotel that phases in and out based on energy fluctuations and the local genius loci. So let's take a quick look at Anstead. Of course, by the time Shane and Lucas get there, everything's not in great shape, but you can see it has some natural beauty, very remote, nice waterways. And again, this is coming from Google Earth, so I don't these aren't my pictures. These are the pictures people have hooked up to Google Earth for an area. But I like to try to provide there. Isn't that a gorgeous shot? I mean, here we're really looking at the West Virginia mountains in the fall, and it is so gorgeous. So here we're looking at what's around Anstead, West Virginia, and you can see there's not a whole lot, but it's real pretty. Now, McConnell Mills shows up in the first book, Wasteland Marshals, jumping back here to north of Pittsburgh. And McConnell Mills is a state park. It's got some beautiful hiking and a mill with a water wheel. And in Wasteland Marshals, of course, the park rangers are some of the surviving authority figures trying to help keep total chaos from descending. And Shane and Lucas make a stop at McConnell Mills. And this is also when Shane is starting to put together his realization that the hum of music he has always heard in his mind, and more so since the events, is actually the genius loci, the elementals, the daemon of a place. And McConnell Mill speaks to him in that way. So you can see it's a very pretty place. I've gone hiking there myself. It's near the area where Larry and I grew up. So it is really a gorgeous place. Oh, there you can see it in the fall. But we really like to take real places whenever we can. And if we can, there's the inside of the covered bridge. If we can use the real history, we will. If we can use the real urban legends and ghost stories, we will. Of course, you usually have to give a tweak to that. And all of these places, we get to visit some very short video clips in the video playlist. So I do encourage you, if you've read the series, to take a look at the video playlist, because you get to see some of this with sight, sound, and motion. Now, Cooper's Lake in the first book, Wasteland Marshals, is where the reenactors have actually created a kingdom and built a fence and built a moat and have retreated inside their walls with somebody they elected king. In reality, Cooper's Lake is a campground, and it has for several decades hosted what's called the Pensic Wars. And this is a Society for Creative Anachronism, multi-week get-together. You can see the tents there and the costuming, and it culminates in a battle. Now, the running joke is that the loser gets to keep Pittsburgh. That's not exactly true. It is for glory and honor and ranking. But folks take this real seriously. Of course, reenactors, the whole idea of reenactors is this is more than cosplay. This is people who have dedicated a lot of their lives, and again, I don't know these people, these are just photos that go with it, that have dedicated a lot of their lives to learning how to do things in the old way. And of course, that's why after the events, when modern technology fails, the power grid goes down, the internet is spotty, who has the know-how on how to survive without modern conveniences? Well, it's going to be the reenactors, like the Society for Creative Anachronism, which I call something else in the books, and the battle reenactors, people who go out and reenact Revolutionary and Civil War battles, and the people at the living history museums, because they're the people who have studied the ways that work without all our modern conveniences. Speaking of which, Old Bedford Village shows up in Wasteland Marshals as a place where Shane and Lucas stop in to meet with the coven that has taken shelter there. The idea is that these places have created fenced perimeters and have taken in some of the local folks who needed shelter and are now really working, living communities. They were historical, they were museums. Now people move back in and they are using the old ways to make best of what they can after the events. So here you can see this really is a historic reenactment village. And all the people who work there as docents have studied the old ways, whether it's using a forge for metal or growing plants or cooking. So they would be uniquely prepared to step in if all of a sudden that's all we had to work with. And of course, there are a number of buildings and a working farm, very pretty place. But here is Old Bedford, and there's the tavern that I mentioned by name in the book. Here we get another look at it. So that is a real place. South Mountain State Park, we also visit this is Witch of the Woods. You can see it's also pretty remote. There was a Civil War battle there, very bloody. And because of that, there's some lingering dark resonance, and that causes the boys some problems in book 2. But you can see what the South Mountain State Park, which includes the battlefield, looks like, and some of the terrain, because this is where the boys have a werewolf fight. And run into some things that they weren't really planning on. Now, Rocky Gap State Park shows up in Wasteland Marshals. And as the series goes along, as Shane and Lucas say, they're not exactly human and not precisely sane. But after Lucas's run-in with the feral AI, a strong elemental steps in and saves his life and co-pilots, because the elemental can't leave or Lucas will die. The elemental sustaining him. And they name the elemental Rocky because of Rocky Gap State Park. So here you can see more beautiful area, but you see how remote we are. You see how far out in the woods. This is a gorgeous area. Of course, right now it's got all the amenities, lovely lodges and visitor centers and all that. But when Shane and Lucas get there, all of this stuff is falling into ruin because there just isn't anybody to take care of it for them. We also have the boys stopping by Gettysburg in the first book in Wasteland Marshals, where there is now a fort and a working community within the fort walls. Of course, Gettysburg, major battle of the Civil War, turning point. But and now all of the land that was originally involved in the battle has been repurchased and returned to how it was at the time of the battle. So buildings that weren't there at the time have been taken down, fences have been put back up, trees have been planted, other trees have been taken out. So that when you're looking at the land, you are seeing, to the best of the ability to replicate it, what the soldiers at the time of the battle would have seen. And if you haven't been to Gettysburg, I highly recommend it. It is a wonderful visit, but make sure you leave yourself plenty of time. Now, in Shutdown Crew, which is the 4th novella, it's not out yet, but it will be soon, Lucas and Shane are asked to come up and deal with some problems up around the Beaver Valley Power Station. Now, remember, in the Wasteland Marshal series, we've had these catastrophic events. So while this is a real power station that is still functioning, although I believe it is slated to be decommissioned, in Shutdown Crew, it has already had a meltdown because the power grid failed, the cooling systems failed, it went China syndrome. And so highly toxic, highly radioactive. Shippingport was an older facility that was built very close to Beaver Valley. It has since been decommissioned and disassembled. But Beaver Valley is still there, still operating this year, might be shutting down next year. Again, you can see this is not in the middle of a highly settled area, although it's not completely remote. But this kind of gives you an idea of the setting that Shane and Lucas are going into when you read Shutdown Crew, and how massive these nuclear power plants are. If you've never seen one up close, they are gigantic. Shippingport is very close to the Beaver plant. Really only has this one picture just to say it's a town. It only has 214 people in it. Now, the Greenbrier is a famous hotel in West Virginia, and it's notorious for having a secret bunker underneath that dates from the Cold War, and post-World War II that is now no longer secret and they take tours. But you can see it is a huge complex. And so in Shutdown Crew, when Shane and Lucas stop here to check in and see who needs them and kind of get their next set of orders, this is a gigantic complex. And if you build a fence around it and turn the lawns into farmland and repurpose the buildings, you could shelter a decent sized group of people. So here's the Greenbrier, obviously before you have the events of the cataclysm. And pardon the dog there. So here we're looking at Greenbrier in the winter. When Shane and Lucas visit, of course, it's not as opulent anymore. It's been repurposed to keep people safe. They've sheltered a whole lot of people in that hotel in ways that wouldn't have passed at the time. But here you get a look at how it is now, and for them, how it was in the past. Penn State Beaver also shows up in Shutdown Crew. Now, this is a satellite campus of Penn State University. And of course, in the Wasteland Marshals series, the campuses often have been repurposed as towns. And again, fenced. The students have nowhere to go, so they stay, and their majors have become their occupation. And they bring in townspeople and they put up a fence for protection, and so they become fortified towns. So here we can see a little bit of Penn State Beaver campus, and again, I don't load the pictures. They kind of come with the, I don't know what that is. They kind of come with the Google Earth. And we are jumping back and forth here. In Wasteland Marshals, the first book, on their way to Bedford Village, they stop at the Big Coffee Pot. And the Big Coffee Pot, as you can see, is one of those roadside attractions from the Route 66 era. Still standing. I don't think it is still serving coffee, but one of the things that Shane realizes is that he can tune into these elementals, and places where energy is particularly strong, people have tended to turn into shrines or attractions or sacred places, or if the energy is negative, to have avoided, because even on a primal sense, they may realize that the energy is not good. And so there's a warning to stay away from it. But the Big Coffee Pot really does exist. And it's kind of a historic thing now. So Fort Dietrich also shows up in the Wasteland Marshals series. Fort Dietrich's over here in Maryland, and this is where we find out that there's been some government genetic tampering, and they've been trying to create super soldiers, were soldiers. This is where the were hybrids come in that they run into in Witch of the Woods. So, you know, again, government facilities, they don't really like people walking around taking pictures. This is the best we've got. But trying to give you an idea of what's mentioned in the books. Of course, Fort Richie also shows up. And this is over here closer to Raven Rock. If I pull out a little bit, I should be able to show you that they are not too terribly far apart. Not going to chase it around. But here's Fort Richie. And again, that shows up in the first Wasteland Marshals book. Once again, they don't let you take a whole lot of pictures there, but it exists. And we did base, we based the book on it loosely in that we took what we needed from what existed and we changed it up as we needed for the story. Now, in Shutdown Crew, we also have some abandoned Nike missile sites and silos and bunkers. Now, for the purposes of the fiction, we relocated those from places that were a little further away and made them closer to the Beaver Valley area just for story's sake. But Pennsylvania does have a bunch of these, and there are a fair number of them that were in place during the Cold War around Pittsburgh's perimeter, because Pittsburgh was considered, because of its manufacturing capability, all the steel mills, to be of high national security importance. So they did have missile sites around. They have all been decommissioned. The missiles are gone, the bombs are gone, hopefully. And here you can see a little more of what's left. Now, by the time Shane and Lucas meet up with the group that is that has taken over one of these facilities, the bombs are gone, the facility remains. Some other secret government hijinks have been gotten up to in that facility in the past. And the new folks who have moved in are trying to make the best of what they can to protect the area and repurposing the buildings that have been left behind. Of course, you know, since they were government facilities and military facilities and were built to withstand a war, they were built to survive. And you can see they also left some things that were there, useful. Here we really kind of see them already in decline because these sites have been abandoned and in many cases repurposed. I think that's the same one. This one. So if it will let me go here, doesn't seem to want to let me go to the coordinates, but if you take a look at the list, there are a couple of coordinates for some of the abandoned bunkers that are out there as well. Doesn't seem to want to let me share that right now. But that's our tour from Wasteland Marshals, books 1 through 4. Of course, Shutdown Crew is coming out very soon. There will be more Wasteland Marshals coming up next year. But that's the tour. Hope it lends some visuals for you as you read the books. Hope you're enjoying reading the books. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you online.